Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira
चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो कृष्णपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं मूलं वदति यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम्। Thank you all very much for being here and also inviting me. It's a great honor and great pleasure to be here, and we were always looking for an opportunity to come, but thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to actually come with my family today. So I really appreciate the program that you are running here, especially going over the Bhagavad Gita verses one by one as a study, and trying to cover the entire Bhagavad Gita with most important verses. And I understand that today we are at the end of the 6th chapter, and I would like to share my few thoughts, whatever I learned so far about the last conclusion of the 6th chapter. So we will recite the verse, we'll read the purport, and then we'll get back to again a little of discussion. So where do you see that?
Do you see the PowerPoint on? They don't see it.
They can see the PowerPoint.
Oh, it's the back.
So this is verse 47 from chapter 6, and this is the last verse. Yoginam api sarvesham
Yoginam api sarvesham
Madgatenantaratmanam
Madgatentaratmanam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Same yukta tamo mataha
Same yukta tamo mataha
Yoginam api sarvesham
Yoginam api sarvesham
Madgatenantaratmanam
Madgatentaratmanam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Same yukta tamo mataha
Same yukta tamo mataha
Yoginam api sarvesham
Yoginam api sarvesham
Madgatenantaratmanam
Madgatentaratmanam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Same yukta tamo mataha
Same yukta tamo mataha.
Translation, please repeat after me. And of all the yogis,
All the yogis,
one with great faith,
one with great faith,
who always abides in me,
always abides in me,
thinks of me,
thinks of me,
within himself, and renders transcendental loving service
transcendental loving service
to me.
to me.
He is
He is
the most intimately united
the most intimately united
with me in yoga,
with me in yoga,
and is the highest of all.
and is the highest of all.
That is my opinion.
That is my
Prabhupada ki jai. So these are, I will read the purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. It's a long purport, but Srila Prabhupada is covering every phrase, every word of the verse. So we will pay a little attention, even though the purport is a little longer. So the word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its roots in the verb bhaja, which is used when there is need for service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaja. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod, and may be called discourteous. But one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do so, he falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows. Ya esham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanad bhrashtaha patantyadha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse also the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or any other common living entity. The word avajananti, used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mamura. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead like Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. So now onwards, Srila Prabhupada also covers the summary of the chapters. So that's why the purport is a little bit extended. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in Bhakti Yoga. Yoga actually means Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of Bhakti Yoga. From the beginning of Karma Yoga to the end of Bhakti Yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma Yoga, without fruitive results, is the beginning of this path. When Karma Yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, this stage is called Jnana Yoga. And when Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the Supersoul by different physical processes, and the mind is on him, then it's called Ashtanga Yoga. And when one surpasses the Ashtanga Yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it's called Bhakti Yoga, or the culmination. Factually, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name: Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, Raj Yogi, Hatha Yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountains, of which...
No, it's not there.
No. Yeah. So Prabhupada gives an example of Himalaya. So Himalaya means highest peak, the mountain Everest. It's called the culmination of Himalaya. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga, to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyam Sundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and his body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahmajyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Narsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. The stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Yasya deve parabhakti, yatha deve tatha guru, tasyaite kaditha hi artha prakashante mahatmana. Only unto the great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the Supreme Master, spiritual Master, are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed, according to Shvetashvara Upanishad 6.23. And then Srila Prabhupada mentions Bhakti Rasya Bhajanam Tad Iham Amutro Ukadi Nairasyenam Mushmita Manaha Kalmanam Etadeva Naishkarmyam. That means Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. This is the purpose of Naishkarmya. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 115. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of yoga system. And this is the end of the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 6th chapter of the Gita called Dhyan Yoga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So here, as you can see, I am presenting a small PowerPoint so we can help each other understand in a much better way. So I'm giving this title, Krishna Asks for Emotion and Action in Yoga. And I will go to the next slide because I want to show you a summary of what I'm going to cover. So we'll talk a little bit about the conclusion again, the 6th chapter, and then the 3 attributes of the yogi which are mentioned in this verse. I'll speak about the yoga staircase metaphor and 2 things. How bhakti includes other paths and how other paths culminate into bhakti. And then we would like to talk a little bit about how we connect this verse to our own lives. So, chapter 6 is Dhyana Yoga, and in Bhagavad Gita we have many systems explained: Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. And yoga, we all know, means linking up our consciousness with the Divine Supreme Lord and to re-establish our relationship with Him. So, in Ashtanga Yoga chapter, there have been many details about this Ashtanga Yoga system. There are practices, what to do, how to control the mind, and what is the final outcome of this Dhyana Yoga. It's all explained there. And then Arjuna had a couple of questions to Krishna about the mind, about how to handle the mind, and what happens if I'm not able to progress fully during this lifetime, then what happens? So those questions are answered by Krishna, and at the end, Krishna comes to the conclusion of the entire discussion of the Dhyana Yoga. And there are 2 verses, basically, 46 and 47. And it would be appropriate to also refer to 46, even though we are discussing 47, because those 2 verses take the conclusion. And the conclusion is like this, especially in 46, what Krishna is saying is that he's comparing 3 different personalities. Those are karmis, means who are workers, those who are tapasvis, who are ascetics or who do a lot of austerities in order to gain something, and they take a lot of voluntary inconveniences in order to gain something. And then the jnanis, or those who seek knowledge and progress in that way. But Krishna in 46 is saying that a yogi is greater than all of these 3 other personalities, whether it's a karmi or a jnani or a tapasvi. So he clearly instructs Arjuna, become a yogi. Do not waste your time in karma, because it's called Shama Evahi Kevalam. There is no point in doing just karma and not doing anything else, just sense enjoyment. But it's also not useful to do just tapasya or being a tapasvi or doing austerities without understanding the connection with the Lord. So for that, there's a very nice verse in Mukundamala Stotra. Some of you might have heard that. It says that if just karma is like the elephant bathing, because as right after bathing, the elephant covers itself with ash. So there's no point. It's all waste of time. If we do a lot of scriptural study under Jnana Yoga, going through all the Vedic literatures, trying to speculate and come to some point that this is not material, this is not spiritual, and make all the analysis. But again, without considering the main source of that knowledge, who is Lord Krishna or Narayan, then it's compared to crying in a forest, because crying in the forest, nobody's going to hear and nothing is going to happen. So it's like that. And then just the austerities. You know, there are so many types of austerities people do for no profound reason. They just do it very superficially under some conception, and that is compared to almost like just reducing your weight. You do different yoga poses, you do lots of fasting, and people run for so many miles, and all of that. Yes, it's an austerity. It's a voluntary inconvenience for some purpose, definitely. But that purpose without connection with Krishna is almost like reducing your weight. Nothing else will happen. So those three are not considered by Krishna, and that's why Krishna very clearly says, do not become any of those. Arjuna, you become a yogi. So that's for us also, Krishna is directly saying. But the real conclusion comes in the next. He says, not just any yogi. Of course, there may be different paths as we're speaking in this verse, but in this chapter itself. But Krishna says that there's a little more specific to this just yogi. And he says, of all the yogis, it could be any path, but in that path, there are three things. You have to be faithful, Shraddhavan. You have to serve me with love and devotion, bhajate. And the third one is that you have to think of me always in your heart, which is madgatena antaratma. So there are three. So that kind of person, Krishna's opinion, Krishna says it's my opinion, that yogi will be the best of all. He's the topmost yogi. And the specific word that he uses is yukta tama. You know, you see that he says same yukta tamo mata. So let's look at this word yukta and yukta tama a little bit more. So yukta is used in this chapter itself twice by Krishna. But at that time, what he's trying, so I'll give you a mention, it's 6.8 and 6.18. Two times Krishna has used the word yukta. And mainly what he said, that jnana vijnana triptatma kutastho vijitendriyaha yukta iti uchyate yogi sama loshta ashma kanchana. Which means that person who sees everything equally and who is fully satisfied by virtue of knowledge and realization, that is yukta. And that person sees everything with one vision, does not consider good and bad, happiness, distress, dishonor, honor, happiness, nothing of that. Everything is. So you see that yukta is more or less indicating that this yogi is detached from materials, detached from material entanglements. And similarly, in another verse, in 18, he uses the word yukta in the same way. So he says in 18, he says, Yada viniyatam chaham atmani eva vasishthate. I can't hear this, too small. Yukta iti uchyate tada. So again, this word which is being used here, yukta, is that yogi whose mental activities are disciplined, and he is situated in transcendence. He is devoid of material desires. So again, the word yukta is used to indicate that he is detached from material entanglements, material happenings. But the word yukta tama, which is used in this 647, same yukta tamo mata, the topmost, is the most intimately connected, Srila Prabhupada translates. And what that means is that not just materially detached from all these entanglements, but also spiritually attached to Krishna. So that's why it becomes from yukta to yukta tama. Not just connected to Krishna by detaching from material, but yukta tama, the topmost, by attaching to Krishna. So that's something we can relate to our lives when we discuss later on as to how this verse will connect to us. So we also in our endeavors not just want to say no to material, everything no. I don't want to do this because it will entangle me further. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Just instead of negation, of course the negation is one, but then I will do this for Krishna. I will do that for Krishna. So going to more positive. That is Yukta Tama that Krishna likes. And so Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. Okay, I'll move on with this. So that's Yukta Tama, and let's look at now the 3 attributes of the topmost Mugi that are mentioned in this verse. Madgatena Antaratmana, Shraddhavan, and Bhajate. So let's first of all see Madgatena Antaratmana, and Prabhupada mentions, translate this as one who abides in me and one who thinks of me always. So all the yogi's thoughts are based on Krishna. They are always situated, the thoughts are situated in Krishna. That's the meaning of Madgatena Antaratmana. And so again, what has been mentioned is that thinking is on Krishna and it's with the mind. So it's an internal process. The yogi, maybe externally, you will not be able to see that this yogi or this person who is trying to be situated in yoga, how that person is really connected from inside with Krishna, because it's an internal thought, it's a mind. We cannot see. That person might be behaving just the normal way in this material world. He may be doing all kinds of activities to maintain his family and doing different things. But that's an internally, how is the attachment to Krishna? And that again, we can learn as to how do we take this quality of that yogi while we are doing our Krishna consciousness. And we'll talk about that again later. The next is Shraddha, the faith. Now, Shraddha is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says, Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Khe Sudrul Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hoya. Which means Shraddha is the confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. And such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. So this Shraddha is very important. And if you can see now these 2 words, Madgatena Antaratmana, which means thinking about Krishna in the mind, with Shraddha, with faith. And that is the part of emotion that in the beginning I mentioned, that Krishna is asking from this yogi 2 things, emotion and action. So this is the part of emotion, because in order to think about somebody constantly 24/7, we need to have some connection with that person. And also faith that this person is mine and if I do some good, my duties for this person is going to be beneficial, so that Shraddha is there. So we do have experience of that, right? I mean, it's not very difficult to imagine how can somebody think of another person all the time? We have this experience in our lives. Like, we have our families, our children, right? And any time, anywhere we go to work or any other activity in our lives, do we have always in the back of our mind that my child is such and such, and my child is in such and such place, I need to do some things for my child, I need to think about its safety. Is there any moment, even though we are completely engrossed in some activity in the office or wherever we are, do we ever in the back of our consciousness forget? We don't. Similarly, we can imagine as to how a yogi can constantly think of Krishna, doing any path, whether that path is Ashtanga Yoga, doing many asanas and trying to focus the mind, is it studying the scriptures and trying to find out the supreme absolute truth, or doing Karma Yoga, doing all the activities. Never ever there is a point in time where that yogi will forget in the back of the mind that Krishna is my Supreme Lord, and I'm doing everything for Krishna. So that is actually the Madgatena Antaratmana, and also with Shraddha. And that is the aspect of emotion or sentiments, because unless you have relationship with Krishna in sentiments, in a good emotional way, that Krishna is my Lord, I'm dependent on Him, and He's going to protect me, save me, guide me throughout my life. If that faith is there, and if that sentiment is there, then we will be able to execute what Krishna is expecting here from a yogi. Think about me always with faith. And since we have the experience on a material level, we can take that experience to the spiritual level. And the next part is bhajate, and Srila Prabhupada is very elaborate on this. He says, bhajate is not just worship. And I always remember these lines when Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport that you can avoid worshipping anybody, maybe even in this world people worship or don't worship the Devi Devatas, and still life goes on. Of course they pay the price for that, not directly but indirectly. And similarly, you can be very faithful to the government and do everything you can. It's also a worship in one sense, right? You're worshiping because you're paying honors, paying respects to the government system. But since we are a part and parcel of Krishna, we are connected to Krishna, if we ignore Krishna, we will never go without being thoroughly condemned. And if you are fortunate enough, if you have never done that in your life, you haven't forgotten Krishna, you have been very good bhakta since the beginning of your life, that's great. You're never condemned. But there are people who join Krishna consciousness in the middle of their lives, and they have been atheists, they have different roles that they have played, and sometimes they have this experience that I did not consider the Supreme Lord, and I went on my own in my life, and I disrespected. And when that is there, they also experience or realize that I am being thoroughly condemned in some ways. There could be personal experiences in this also, but anyway, so the point is that Srila Prabhupada says that this bhajate is not simple, it's not superficial. Bhajate is the loving devotional service. And this yogi is therefore asked to do some action. The action of loving devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are activities, we do all kinds of activities, but when we do karma for Krishna without earning reactions, and by removing personal desires, then that becomes bhajate. And that's why it's an action. And thus bhajate can also be said as the highest love. This love which is made up of duty and service. And that duty and service is nothing but devotion. And that's how this word has been really discussed, is not to misunderstand. That is something superficial. Now, with these three attributes in mind, we can always remember that how we want to strive in this Bhakti Yoga journey, Krishna consciousness. Now, I wanted to come to this point of yoga in different stages, as Srila Prabhupada discusses in the purport. So there's this metaphor of yoga ladder. And if you remember Srila Prabhupada's purport, he says that if a person doing karma yoga never progresses to actual attachment to Krishna, then that person remains as karma yogi all the time. In Jnana Yoga, if the Jnana does not culminate into the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, then that person remains as a Jnana Yogi. And similarly, Ashtanga Yogi. If that person, after progressing and even after seeing Paramatma in the heart, does not take up devotional service, then that person will remain stuck at the level of Ashtanga Yogi. So the staircase is, there's a metaphor, you can imagine it's a staircase, and there are different floors to go to. So the karma yoga is compared to going to heaven, because heaven is the heavenly enjoyment, is the culmination of karma yoga, karma kanda, right? Different karma kanda activities. But if you do the jnana will take you to Brahman realization. Yoga, which is Ashtanga yoga, will take you to Paramatma darshan, but bhakti will take you to ultimate Bhagwan connection. So this is, but the paths which are given in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna has discussed, karma kanda is there, karma yoga, jnana yoga, Ashtanga yoga. They are not independent paths. These paths will assist the yogi to move towards bhakti. And that's why they are not competing with each other. And that's why they can be imagined in the form of a staircase. The staircase is going from one floor to the other floor to the next floor. The top floor is bhakti yoga. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions, if someone gets stuck at the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, that person will never get into the ultimate goal of going to the top floor. And that's how bhakti is seen as something which is supported by the other yoga practices. And that exactly is the discussion in this verse as well, right? And I think there is one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought it's a very appropriate verse for this particular discussion. In the 3rd chapter, Lord Kapil Dev is discussing with Devahuti, his mother. And he gives instructions in Sankhya philosophy. And it's a very, very interesting verse. He says that perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. So this particular verse, this is the verse, I read the translation, it's in the 25th chapter and the verse number is 19. Lord Kapil Dev is very specifically saying that this perfection in self-realization, if it's wanted, and he's talking about Sankhya philosophy, right, to Devahuti. So he's saying that perfection in self-realization cannot be attained unless one engages in devotional service to the Lord, because that's the only auspicious path. So this is like an endorsement by Lord Kapila that you take any path, Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya path, or Jnana path, or Ashtanga path, it has to culminate into bhakti. And that exactly is Krishna saying to Arjuna here and again. So let's moving on to the next point. I wanted to talk about how bhakti includes all other yoga paths. Right? So if karma yoga, we consider, then we do karma for Krishna, right? We do karma, we offer the results to Krishna. That's karma yoga. Or sometimes we do the karma right from the beginning only for Krishna. Not that I will do karma and then offer the results, but I will do the karma only for Krishna. So there are 2 aspects in this karma yoga. But these both aspects is the karma for Krishna. We are doing work for Krishna with the body, and of course sometimes with the mind, not just with the body. So it's body and mind. Now similarly, Jnana Yoga is the introspection on Krishna. You do your scriptural study and you experiment, you try to find out with the help of your own intelligence as to what is material, what is spiritual, and then try to arrive at a conclusion. So that introspection is again on Krishna. That's what is recommended in Jnana Yoga. So with the intelligence. Now in Dhyana Yoga, we already saw just now, that's a meditation on Krishna with the help of the mind. But if you see Bhakti Yoga, in Bhakti Yoga we offer everything to Krishna, whether it's our karma, whether it's our mental thoughts, whether it's our austerities, everything is for Krishna only, and we do it with heart, because in Bhakti Yoga there is no artificial force. It has to come from heart, and that's how. So the point is that if the heart is there, then automatically the body, mind, intelligence will follow. And that's how Bhakti will include everything else. And that's what the point I had. And also the other aspect is how all the other yoga paths which we are describing right now, they culminate into Bhakti Yoga. And Srila Prabhupada always points out that. For example, for Karma Yoga, he says, about this particular verse in the 9th chapter. Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhosi yadasi yat tapasyasi kundaya tat purushvam mad arpanam. So karma yoga is culminating into bhakti with that particular verse. Jnana yoga, again Srila Prabhupada points out to the verse we all know very well, Bahunam Janmanamante, Jnanavanam Prapadite, Vasudevam Sarvaiti, Sarvamiti, Samahatma Sudurlava. So again, Jnani, or the yogi who is attaining perfection in Jnana yoga, will surrender to Krishna in bhakti. Similarly, in Dhyana yoga, we are seeing this verse 6.47, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratma. Right? So that's how you see all the paths are culminating into bhakti. And that is the essential teaching of Srila Prabhupada. And in Bhakti Yoga, of course, Krishna says Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam, right? So that's how it is. Now, okay, I think it's the end of the slideshow. No, I think there's one more. Okay. Now, if you see, so we spoke about how bhakti includes all other paths and how other paths culminate to bhakti. But I think it would be appropriate to always consider where I fall, where did I connect with my life? So much of discussion, okay. Because we are not 100% doing Dhyana yoga. We might be going to yoga classes, but that's not Dhyana yoga. We might be doing some studies, of course Bhagavatam, but more than that, if somebody is really intelligent, they would go for Upanishad studies over there. But we are not definitely doing Dhyana yoga also. We are somewhere close to Karma yoga, but again, sometimes when I analyze myself, I will, okay, I'm not doing really a Karma yoga, maybe a Karma Mishra Bhakti, maybe a little bit of Karma and a little bit of Bhakti. So when all of these things are there, then where do I connect with this verse, with my own life? And for that, I always consider these three attributes, these three terms, where Krishna can really point out to me that this is where you can progress. The first progress is about Shraddha. Like, how do I deepen my faith? And I don't know how many of you read the Back to Garden magazine, but in the current Back to Garden magazine, which is for July, August, there's a very wonderful article on Shraddha, on Bhakti, on faith. Please read it if you have Back to Garden magazine. It will give you a very wonderful perspective because it discusses in great detail about different aspects of faith that people in today's world encounter. What they encountered 500 or 1,000 years ago, what are they encountering today, and what has been a perverted concepts of Shraddha or faith that people are developing now onwards in this Kali Yuga. But faith that we are talking about in Krishna consciousness, what Krishna demands from us is beyond all of these concepts, these material concepts of faith that have been changing. People in 500, 1,000 years ago had a different kind of faith, and then the modern science brought a different kind of faith, and now even a perverted faith that people have in different objects, which is like really not very logical. We go beyond all of that. And what is the real faith? The real faith is only upon the Supreme Personality Godhead, on the Supreme Divine. That is the real faith. And so we can, as we progress, we can consider where do I fall and where do I stand with my faith. So that one aspect that helps me connect this verse to myself. The other aspect is Madgatena Antaratmana. Think of Krishna inside my heart, constantly, 24/7. How is that possible? So if I want to progress in that, my understanding should be that I will be conscious of Krishna irrespective of my material conditions. Whether I am in distress or happiness, whether I am in dishonor, honor, discomfort or comfort, whether my family members come with me on this journey of Krishna consciousness, or whether they oppose me, whatever it is, whatever is your material condition, it should not affect this Madgatena Antaratmana, or the constant remembrance of the Lord. So that is another test or another way I can relate to this. And the third one is Shraddhavan Bhajate Bhajate. That is, as we saw, loving devotional service. It's a duty and a service coming out of love for Krishna. And we all strive to do that, right? And if we all trying to be connecting to Krishna, right? You all agree that we are all here because we want to do something about Krishna. We want to reconnect with him, re-establish our relation with him. And how do I serve the Lord? That could be a way I can meditate upon in order to make the sense of this verse. And I can see in this particular Bergen County ISKCON, like you are wonderful congregation here. You're also serving in different ways to carry out this small program. Even though it's moderate size, there are so many aspects of service. And I remember we were also in such kind of phase in ISKCON of Central New Jersey, where I come from. We also had a rental hall for many years. And I kind of remember those days when I came here. The members of the congregation, they were so closely connected. And service is always a joy when we do it in a very closely connected community. We also did a lot of austerity. Because of the rental hall, we used to literally bring everything from home and take everything home at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So we did this for many years, and honestly, I mean, you all know how Krishna rewarded us, Central New Jersey, by giving a wonderful place, which we could not imagine a few months before we got it. We couldn't imagine that. And my hope and my prayer for Bergen County is the same, like all your services that you're doing, all your bhajan, in that sense, bhajate, or bhajan that you're doing here, trying to build this wonderful community, may be rewarded by the Lord in a very wonderful way, which you probably wouldn't even know what's going to happen, but Lord will just reward you in due course of time. But the main thing is that we connect, we keep together, we serve each other, and especially the children. I mean, I see most of you are from the younger generation, you have small kids. So this is a great place where you can actually execute your loving devotional service. It's not a word, it's not a concept, it's not a theory, but it's an actual one, where you can take up service according to your capacity, according to your liking, and do something wonderful, which is completely selfless. And the more we keep our service selfless, the more rewards we get. That's what I've personally experienced. That of course we have some preferences, okay, I'll do this, I'll not do this. But at the same time, if we strive to make it as less selfish as possible, that is very, very rewarding, that's very fruitful. That is actually the bhajate in this verse. And that's how I see that it can connect to all of us at this given point of time. So it's beautiful. And so also, I don't know, the next probably you will move into 7th chapter, but just wanted to make this point that now that Krishna said that think about me, keep your thoughts in me, and with full faith, serve me. So how to do that is the next question, and Krishna will begin the 7th chapter with that information. So the entire bhakti yoga path, or the bhakti yoga process, will now onward start. So for you, as students of the Gita in this congregation, you're going to learn that in the 7th chapter onwards, that now Krishna has said, Arjuna, become yogi, not just a yogi, become a bhakti yogi. Or whatever path you're doing, but culminate into bhakti by thinking of me and by doing loving devotional service to me. And how to do that, he will explain it in the 7th chapter onwards in the Bhakti Yoga. And also when Krishna says, this is my opinion, you know, at the end it says, yukta mataha, this is my mata, or my opinion. And don't, sometimes people may say, oh, but Krishna's opinion, because we know opinion, that word, is a little bit, has a little play, because sometimes we are not sure. we say, oh, maybe I think like that, that's my opinion. So this is sometimes between like knowledge and ignorance, somewhere in between we are, and that's why we say it's my opinion, I think so. But when Krishna says, that's not the opinion the way we express our opinions, because he is the source of all the informations. He is the Lord of all this material and spiritual world. So when he says it's my opinion, it's actually his thoughts, his consideration. Like when he says, Arjuna, you become the topmost yogi, and you become the topmost yogi in this way. That's my feeling. That's what he means by saying opinion. That's how you can remember that particular word. And I would like to end by reading a very wonderful like a little class by Srila Prabhupada he gave in 1975. And again, that will point towards all this discussion in a very beautiful way. And he says that so in order to understand Bhagavad Gita, one has to come to this position to become a devotee of Krishna. It is a business between Bhagwan and Bhakta. Just like if you go to the marketplace and some merchant is talking with another broker about business, they are talking about that business. And that is the actual thing that's happening over there, that they are discussing the business. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Bhagwan and it's heard by the Bhakta. And therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no other business than bhakti. There is no other business. Karma, jnana, yoga, they are described, but with the aim to culminate in bhakti. So this, example might get stuck into our minds whenever we think about it. Is that why I'm doing all of this? It's all because I want to do connection with Krishna, and so anything that comes on the way, I can channelize towards my love towards Krishna. So that's the humble understanding I have, and I would like to ask you to share some of your experiences in this line, or connected to this verse, or any other comments or questions. I would like to see if I can shed some light on that.
Thank you. Very nice summary and very nicely summarized. Mataji, I wanted to just understand about, we say karma yogi or dhyana yogi or ashtanga yogi. If one is not connected with Krishna, they shouldn't be called yogi, right? Because unless you have connection to the super soul or supreme, the word yoga doesn't make sense, because it has to have both hands moving together, right? So then they are just karmis or jnanis or ashtanga yogis.
Well,
Ashtanga.
the thing is, say, somebody who understands karma yoga, okay, I do my work and I give the results to Krishna. That can be karma yogi, because that person might be in business, they give a donation. But what if that person never goes one step ahead of that? The entire life, that person is doing all kinds of karma and saying that I will do this much portion for Krishna. Maybe for 2 days in the whole year, I'll go and do some seva, or maybe do some donation, or anything else. So where is the progress? Even though that person has understanding of karma yoga, has done something a little bit, but there is no progress, and that's why Prabhupada says that you get stuck on that level. Similarly, jnana yoga, so which means by experimentation, by speculation, you discriminate between what is matter, what is spirit. So yes, you are definitely progressing in your understanding of self, first of all, and then understanding how Paramatma is pervaded all over. So you are progressing. But if you do not conclude, that Prabhupada somewhere mentions that has to conclude that the aim of this whole efforts under Jnana Yoga is to understand the Supreme Personality of God. And if that doesn't happen, then that person is still progressing. And that's why Arjuna asked the question, what happens if they don't finish their work? Then they go to the next life, they get another opportunity to continue like that. But if you use the words karmi, that means no yoga. They got it, right? Yeah. Or jnani, which means only mental, you can say, discussion or philosophical, very complex discussion, but you never go to a actual spiritual understanding. That is only Jnani. And then Jnani we see all over, like even the scientists, they can say, because you have recent example, they study, they do publish, and they say, oh no, wait, that's all wrong. They are Jnanis. And then the yogis, we all have yoga classes, and people have doing yogas for all different reasons. They are just yogis. They are not even Ashtanga yogis. So they're good. Yeah. So you got the idea. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Very nice class, very
Thank
well
you.
explained. Mataji, when Lord Ram had given up everything and he was going to the forest, right? So he met Kevat. So and he requested Kevat to take him to the other side of the sea, basically. And Kevat first hesitated, and finally he took Lord Ram to the other side. And then Lord Ram gave him his ring, and Kevat said, I don't want the ring, right? So he could have taken it, and then he could have fulfilled his desires. So what Kevat told Lord Ram, that your business and my business is the same. In a way, I take passengers from this side of the shore to the other side, but you take your devotees from the material ocean into the spiritual. You help devotees to cross the material ocean and take them to the spiritual world. So I don't want anything. In return, all I would request you, like once I leave this body, please help me to cross the material ocean. That's all I want. So now, normally, if people like us or me, right, if such opportunity comes, right, we would take what Lord Ram is giving, right? So my question is how one should do, although we are not at a level where Kevat or Shabri or even Vibhishan, none of us are there at that level. How, in spite of knowing all this, in spite we read so much, practically doing all this, right, what these elevated souls did, it looks like kind of difficult or impossible for me. So how one should, what one should do, or how one should perform his duties to ensure that we also go that path.
Yeah, so in whatever condition we are in materially, we train ourselves not to ask for material rewards from the Lord. We train ourselves. It's not easy in the beginning but then when we learn the process of Krishna consciousness, in the Srimad Bhagavatam says that it's the Kaitava Dharma is not the subject matter of this transcendental literature. Then first we analyze our lives, like, okay, so far in my journey, what I have done. I have asked the Lord always to provide all material comforts to me. I've been demanding, I've been asking. So now my mind needs to be trained with this aspect, like I'm not going to ask for anything. And as you said, the examples of all these wonderful personalities, Gajendra, Vritrasura, Kunti Devi, Draupadi, Pandavas, in Ramayana, of course, you mentioned about Kevata. So we study, and it's not that we will achieve this immediately, because Krishna consciousness is not cheap. It's not happening with our conditioned minds. It may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen in this lifetime. But I tell the Lord that I cry because I cannot be like Kevata.
Okay.
And my crying will be accepted by the Lord. And I'm crying that I cannot become like these guys' personalities. Because that is only what I can do. I can cry that I cannot be like them. And that sentiment will be accepted by the Lord.
Okay.
And the Lord will give us promise. That's my honest, humble understanding.
So you're basically saying, okay, although we cannot perform what they did, we try and we don't succeed. We pray to the Lord that we cannot become like them. Please accept.
Yeah, we are unqualified. Yeah, we just pray that I'm not qualified. But at the same time, you do whatever is appropriate. So you see, there is a training. Instead of asking God, do this for me, you say, do whatever you find appropriate for me, and then accepting His plan.
Okay.
And that's the part of surrender. You know, surrender, there's a definition of surrender that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. Accepting everything that's required for service of the Lord, rejecting everything that's not required for the service of the Lord, and completely, exclusively depending on His mercy, and having great faith that He will take care of whatever I need. And then working our plans and aspirations according to His will, in a humble way. This process again is a training. There is no magic that it will happen, but I can guarantee, or I can really assure you that looking at these devotees, even devotees amongst us who have been in Krishna consciousness for many years, you can see that transformation happening in them.
Okay.
So if that can happen, then it can happen with me also. So we can keep that hope that is going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, as always, very well organized class. Thank you so much. So, I want to ask you the question in a connection to Prabhu's question. I'll read this purport, and if you can help me understanding this. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpasses all the yogas. So, first is, how do we understand that, we are in Bhakti Yoga or not? Because, that Prabhupada said, fake it until you make it. So how fake it until you make it? So we don't know whether we are in bhakti, we are doing it or not, and did we surpasses all that other yogas? Where are we? Is that the process? Like, do we have to pass it? Everybody, whoever is in bhakti, they already pass it. So there are two questions.
Right. Yeah. So you said in the beginning whether we are really doing bhakti or not. We're not sure. So there are different gradations. Karma Mishra Bhakti, honestly speaking, we are not doing pure bhakti. We all agree, right? We are not in that capacity like Prahlad Maharaj, where somebody is killing you and you still say, okay, I will stick to Krishna. No, we may not be able to do that. So we are Karma Mishra Bhakti. But under the mercy and grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, we are doing it. And literally they are kind of graduating us very quickly because they are all merciful, Patita Pavan. So in ISKCON, there are so many examples of people who joined not with much background, not with much understanding, and look at their lives. They have lived a life of pure bhakti. They have given up their lives in pure bhakti. So, under the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda, we have a lot of scope. So instead of thinking negatively, like, oh, am I doing bhakti or not? I'm not sure. Instead of that, we focus on their grace and mercy and the way they are quickly taking us. And I can't really throw the verses, but I'm sure when I go back, say, oh, that was the verse I could have said. So anyway, but we could find some verses to that end. And so thinking positive is very important. Don't ruminate on that thought that I'm not doing. And same with your question also, we can connect to that. And instead of saying that I cannot do this, I cannot do that, but just to see what I can do and what is the potential and what is the hope. And then in the given situation, what can I do? Let me try. This is my present problem, this is my present condition. Let me try something different than I would have done 10 years back without knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And that's the progress. So we are the yardstick to our own progress. We analyze our own lives every day, every month, every year, for so many years. See where you are. Are you progressing? Ask yourself this honest question inside your heart. Nobody, you don't ask your wife or husband. You ask yourself and see where you are. So that is the way to go, bhakti. Yeah? And you said they all have to pass through these stages, right? So Srila Prabhupada says that, again, the same. In Kali Yuga, under the grace and mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, we are taking the shortcut. We are definitely using a path which was not available in the Satya Yuga, which was not available in the Treta Yuga. It was not a shortcut at that time. People had to go through 10,000 years of dhyana. There was no bhakti, direct bhakti, giving up everything in Krishna's favor. No, it was not that they had to. So we are in this situation. We are in Kali Yuga. We are in under the spices of Sankirtana movement. And yes, it's possible that we have surpassed some of these, because as we, one of the slides showed that the Karma Yoga you do with your mind and body. The Jnana Yoga, you do with your intelligence, and Ashtanga Yoga with you do your mind control. And in Bhakti we are doing all of that to some extent in different aspects, because we are doing everything by our heart. So yes, we have to some extent done away with the need to go through these yogas, because we are taking Bhakti directly. So that's our humble understanding, and Krishna knows where we are. He will be the judge. We can't really say that that person is doing better bhakti or that person is not, or even we cannot judge ourselves, because he's the one who will judge our bhakti. Being sincere, being honest, and doing your part selflessly is the only solution I have found so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Sure.
I just wanted to add to Mataji's question, that to add into your the confirmation, that definition of bhakti in the Bhakti Amrita Sindhu, Annavilas Sindham Jnana Karmadi Annavilas Krishna Chilanam Bhakti Uttama, Krishna Chilanam Bhakti Uttama. So if we go one by one, word by word, my test of bhakti will be, I can test against each of these, right? Whether I am Annavilas Sunnam, whether I have become Jnana Karmadi Annavilas,
yes.
Whether I have become
Krishna Vishilanam.
Anukulesh Krishna Vishilanam. So that is one way. Another would be, I would was thinking chapter 12, verse 13 onwards, 13 to 18. Krishna says who he likes. One by one, these qualities will manifest.
Yes. So that's a great idea, to take benefit of these verses and see. Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for bringing that scriptural aspect. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada.
So let's thank Mataji again. Very nicely presented. Made it so clear about the different forms of yoga and how they correlate to understanding of the Supreme Lord. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, you can ask her during Prashant. Yes, Richard.
I have a very quick question.
Yes.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. Very learned as well. But it raised a question within me. And obviously, I have lots of questions, but this one is a simple one. With respect to the pathways, thank you. With respect to the pathways in the ladder system that you just described, I'm confused in terms of the pursuit of perfection versus mere liberation. Is it a matter of degree, or is that separate and distinct, or is it the same thing but a different level?
It's liberation, right? That's what you said.
Yes, liberation, yes.
So it is understood that to the extent we progress on any path, we are walking towards liberation. So there is no, as I said, the more you are detached from the material, to the same proportion you will be attached to the spiritual. So the more, the amount of progress that you do has proportionate liberation for you, because your mind is getting transformed. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Somewhat, but is it different? Is it the same? Liberation versus perfection?
Liberation and perfection, they are the same. I would say they are two sides of one coin. Because if you are going towards perfection, that is going towards liberation from this bodily concept of life. Because it depends on what is your idea of liberation. The word liberation can have many connotations. And I don't know what background you come from, because in Krishna consciousness, perfection, going towards perfection, is going towards liberation. Because to the extent we are perfecting ourselves, to that extent we are giving up our bodily concept, to the extent we are purifying our mind and purifying our existence. And that is liberation from this material world. So they are the same, I would say two parts of the same product. Yeah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So very good questions. So thank you once again. And so for those who do not know about our upcoming festival, next Saturday, starting at 5:30, we're celebrating Radhashtami. So all of you please come and join us in celebrating Narayan's Feelings Day. It's a very important day for us. If you have plans that can be changed, please do. Pleasing Radharani means getting her mercy, means getting Krishna Prema. So try your best. Hare Krishna. Some difficulties to bring 4 tables. If you can please set up 4 tables in the back. And we can take the cushions out.